Hi, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Love Your Work. This is where I chat with people and who love the work that they're doing, and we talk about some of the lessons that they've learned on their work journey. And today I have with me the CEO and founder of One Habit Press, Steve Samblis. How are you, Steve?
I'm good, Whitney. Thank you for having me. I was looking forward to this conversation all day.
Oh, thank you all. We're just starting. The day just started.
Well, I get up at like 4 in the morning though, so this is
Oh,
I'm
well, then that
probably
matters. That matters a lot more.
yeah.
If your day started at 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, it's been a long day. So, thank you, one, for joining. And two, you and I have a relationship now that goes back a little more than a year. You are, as the CEO of One Habit Press, you're a publisher. And so let's talk about what it is you do as a publisher, and why it is that you enjoy the work that you're doing.
Sure. Well, I love it because I created my own publishing company. We started with one book, which I thought was going to be the only book I was going to write in June of 2019. It was called One Habit, and in that book, I basically brought in 100 people, and I asked each of the people in the book if they could instantly instill in a child one habit, what would it be and why? And the reason I framed the question that way, what I was looking for, it was I was looking for what the single habit that they had in their lives that served them the greatest. Because I've always been of the mindset, and we've heard many people say this, that motivation gets you started, but
Right.
your habits that keep you going, right? And it's so
Absolutely.
true. I mean, the greatest people on earth, their motivation goes away when they're down in the dirt and they're just mud, it's raining on them and they just can't move. It's their habits that help that arm move, the leg move, and just get them going forward, literally and figuratively through life. So I did this first book, and I found a way to tell the story of some of the greatest people on the Earth's planets. And I'm talking about like Frank Shankowitz, who started the Make-A-Wish Foundation, Rob Angel, who invented Pictionary, the founder of Constant Contact, interesting actors like Ken Sorbo that played Hercules, Barry Gordy's son, who helped run Motown, just amazing human beings, right? And the book was so interesting to me, not just the book itself, but the journey to get there,
Yeah.
that it just blew up it basically just blew up. And people in the book started saying, this is a great idea. Let's take the one habit idea, but focus it on women who are action takers. That's when you and I started working together, I think, wasn't it? And let's focus in on one habit to beat cancer. And let's focus on entrepreneurial success. Our last book was One Habit to Thrive in a Post-COVID World, so, which is habits of once this world gets back to what is going to be the new normal, how is it different? And here's the habits
Right.
that allow you to survive in that. So it started with one book. It became many. We're now working on 20, and we've worked with 700 actors, authors so far. I do love movie stuff too, and it's just been amazing. It became a business which I'm in love with, and it just, there's two ways to have a job that you love. One is to go and get a job and work for somebody, and go down one of two paths: either just love the company or love your job, hopefully love both.
Yeah.
If you love the company but you don't love your jobs, there are ways that you can do things and create your own destiny within the company you love.
Yes.
If you love your job and love what you do, you're a designer, you're a copywriter, you're a publicist, whatever it might be. If you love that job, but the company is lacking in its potential, that's up to you. And there's tools and habits and things you can do to go down that path and create a joyful world, basically.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the whole point of this podcast, right? And having this conversation with people is, one, what are you doing, and then we'll have some conversation about sort of your path to making that happen, to getting there, and the lessons that you've learned, because I think you and I have talked about this, and there's a book that you and I are working on that addresses this. But most workers do not enjoy what they're doing, right? And it's one of those
That's
things,
so sad.
either the work that they're doing or who
The
they're
company
working
work for.
for. And so upwards, it depends on the study, but upwards of 70-80% of people do not like what they're doing. And for work to be such a large part of our lives, the vast majority of our adult lives, right? The largest block is a third of our day for most people or more.
Mhm.
And when you take into account commuting and some of the other stuff,
Yeah.
it's a drain on people. And so the whole point of this is to show that there are actually people who love what they do. And
Yeah.
maybe not every single moment of every day, I like to say this, as rainbows and unicorns, but overall, we love what we do. And if I can love what I can do and Steve can love what he does, then certainly you can love what you do.
Oh, and by the way, Whitney, too, something, there is an epidemic, and the epidemic is people get into a job that they just don't like,
yeah,
they don't love, and so they bail.
yeah,
And here's the problem with that. Greg Reed wrote a book, 3 Feet from Gold, about this guy that was digging for gold on a property and just gave up, destitute, broke, sell the property for no. So, but yeah, and a new guy comes along and dug 3 more feet, and he
yes.
hit the biggest gold vein in the entire United States. And so here's the thing that's happening: this epidemic. I think it's globally, by the way.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and what's happening is when people feel underappreciated, underwhelmed, unhappy, they just bail. Now, here's the reality: there are tools, there are habits, there are things you can do when you feel in that mode to turn that around. You already got the job. Your salary was right. That's why you took the job. It was something that resonated with you. There are 100% things you can do to not jump ship, but to take your forward momentum and create that business that you worked for and that job into something you absolutely
Yes.
love. So we can 100% cure the epidemic, because there are processes and there are tools and there are habits. The book we're doing together, One Habit to Win at the Work You Love, is one example that rather than, leaving a job and then having to go find another one, that's so traumatic.
Well, the other part is that there's no guarantee that you won't get the same thing in the next place. So it's like relationships. What can you do, right,
Yeah.
to turn that around? And it's not always easy, and it's not always evident that you can do that. But you're absolutely right. The bottom line is that it is turnaroundable. And if you have the tools, if you know what habits you can have for yourself, you can absolutely do that. And
My
as someone who's been through that, I speak from experience.
yeah, my friend Peter Weller, he played RoboCop. He was in a movie called Buckaroo Banzai, and he's got this line in Buckaroo Banzai, and the line is, "No matter where you go, there you are."
There you are, absolutely.
So I think that you and I, and the people that we resonate with, that we love teaching people these things that are so obvious that once they hear them, they go, "Oh, I can do that." That's why we love what we do so much, because that we have passion about this, and we're seeing results. It's happening with you. It's happening with me. It's happening with the people we work with, and there's a way to teach people to find that passion, and that also excites me. Another thing that you and I talked about before we got started, there's also finding a path to the job that you know you're going to love. And I think that's something else that's very, very exciting to me. When I was a young man and I just got out of high school, and college was not an option for me, but I wanted to be a stockbroker. I love the stock market. I could trade stocks. I could make money. I took at 18, I took these 17. I had credit cards. I took all the cash advances and bought stock and turned that into paying off my loans with the credit cards.
You
and
would not
making
be a fan of Dave Ramsey, huh?
Yeah, he would hate it. Yeah, I know. So, but for me, I did something that you shouldn't do. But here's what I did do. I knew the company I wanted to work with was called Dean Witter at the time. It was 8,000 brokers. It was one of the top 2 brokerage firms in the US, and they weren't going to hire me because I didn't have a master's. I didn't have a college degree. But the number one thing important that I learned in the stock brokerage business was the commissions you made. So suddenly they forgot about the lack of degrees on the walls, frame certificates, frame accolades. And so I went to the smallest firm I could find that would hire me, a little tiny firm no one's ever heard of in Orlando, and they're not even in business anymore. And they brought me on board. And then I took my trading skills and I started with a small group of clients, and I built it up to several hundred until I was doing about 100,000 a month in commissions. And I went to Dean Witter then, and I said, listen, here I am. I did 1.2 million in commissions last year. I'm now 19 years old, and I want to work for you. Not only did they give me a signing bonus to go over there, but they gave me a salary for 5 years and a 50% commission split, which doesn't happen. Usually like 30%. But I took the job that I knew I was going to love, and I found a path to get there. So no matter where you come from, no matter what obstacles might be in your way, as long as you have a clear, passionate, highly defined goal in mind, the path can be found. I believe that 100%.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting, you mentioned earlier that 3 feet from gold, that's in the book, Think and Grow Rich, right? It's a story that's told there. And the whole thing is about being 100% passionate, committed. It starts with desire. And if you have a desire to do work that you love, then you absolutely are responsible and obligated to yourself to find the path that will get you there. And maybe you find out when you get there that you didn't love it as much as it doesn't matter, right? The bottom line is that it's your life, it's your career, it's your work, and you have to decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and take ownership of it. I'm a big believer. We don't talk about this in our particular, conversations about work, but on the leadership side, I'm a big believer that leadership bears some responsibility in creating work and environments that people love to work in. But that does not absolve you as an employee or a contractor or running a business from owning your part in that. It's a balancing act, or
I love what
you're saying. Symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, I love what you're saying here, because it's about, you have responsibility, and and honestly, it's not to the company, it's to you. Because here's the thing. Richard Branson said something very, very interesting, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know the words exactly. But the essence is this: when he was asked about how he focuses on customer service, he says, I don't focus on the customers. I focus on my employees. If I focus on my employees and give them the best environment physically possible for them to win and thrive, they will in turn give the best customer service, love our customers, and create a world and a company that is above all else, is to serve others because they're so happy. Absolutely. And so that's what leadership should be doing. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. And by the way, if they don't, Whitney, back to that again, if they don't, there is 100% ways that you could, as an employee of a great company that loves their job, but maybe doesn't necessarily love their company yet, there are 100%, there are things that you will find that you can do to help the company create a work environment that they will absolutely thrive in. Yes. So once again, you're never in this painted into a corner situation, right? Right. And I know my dad worked for the same company for 40 years. And the way I got into personal development is he would buy Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People and Psycho Cybernetics and all these amazing books and audios, which are on 78s of Cabot Roberts and Norman Vincent Peale and Earl Nightingale. And he would buy them and feel good about himself because he bought the books or the records, but never listened to them. And he just never, it's so sad. He never let himself out of that corner. But he worked in Gary, Indiana. We lived in Highland, Indiana. And he just had to, that was what he felt he could do. Because back then, people just didn't think as much about where they were. They just kind of, that's what you do. You work for a company for 40 years and you go on your way.
And it's definitely been an evolution, right? It's an evolution on both sides, on the employer side and the employee side. There was a time where, employees were just cogs in a wheel. You come, you do your job, and that's it. And management ran you into the ground that way. That's how unions came to be. That's how, the labor laws and things that we have came to be, because that's how people were treated. And as people decided that's not how they're going to be treated, we've got an evolution of organization and employee development, but it takes time. And here's something that's interesting. As you're talking about this 100% responsibility, as I was doing my morning routine, something that I read really resonated with me. And that is this concept of people will treat you basically the way you allow people to treat you, right? And so if you are in an organization that is not treating you with the respect and the dignity that you think you deserve, right? It goes back to you are in control of this. If you don't think that you deserve something different, you won't demand something different, and then you won't get something different.
Do you know how that happens too? The way that happens is, and this is what saddens me, is I'm pretty sure every 24 hours of work, every day that went by, for my dad as an example, he just let the day go by and another went by and another. And if you don't, and one of the things that you and I both teach is that you have to each moment, every day is its own thing. You only get one dinner a day. You only wake up once a day. You only go to bed once a day.
Well, I go to bed twice a day and
I take naps.
I nap. I nap. So
I'm with you. Yeah. So, but you got to get out of the zombie mode.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
just listen, just pay attention. And at every moment, now this is hard, especially when your job might suck. This is hard, but you have to step back. You get so deep in the woods, you don't see the trees. I think I did that right.
Yes.
You have to make sure each day. Let me give you a habit that we can use, okay? Now, whether you work for somebody, work for yourself, one of the things I do every day is when I go to sleep at night, before I go to bed, I write out by hand or on the computer what I'm going to do tomorrow, what my goals are for tomorrow. And if I had some goals I didn't accomplish today, I put them on that page. And then I look at all the goals and I say, are these really important to me? Am I really passionate about these? If I'm not, I immediately put a line through it. But if you'll just do that, no matter where you work, if you're a college student, if you're a part-time, no matter where you work, if you'll do that each day, you will create one little thing, one little spark. There'll be a piece of forward momentum. Maybe out of the 5 items you want to do tomorrow, you do one, but you have to celebrate that.
Yeah.
You have to celebrate that.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing, is celebration and gratitude, right? Are two more really great habits to have in addition to the one you just mentioned. So let's take a trip down memory lane. So you talked a little bit about your time as a stockbroker. What was the very first job that you had?
First job I had was a busboy at the Big Wheel restaurant in Hammond, Indiana.
And what was a lesson that you learned as part of that job? What's a really good lesson that you learned?
Yeah, that was interesting. It was my first job, obviously. and I really took it seriously. I cleaned tables and stuff, but I found out what my role is, why I was necessary to this restaurant. And I literally did the best job I physically could. And I found pride in it. I found pride in having my tables super clean. I, I felt pride in grabbing a bum, I call him a bum, a guy's hand that tried to steal the waitress's tips, off the table. I remember because this guy went in there and he just could grab it, and I grabbed his hand. I said, put it back. I'm 16, right? And this guy's 250 pounds. I'm looking up at him. Didn't matter. I was like that little chihuahua in the corner, So
well, her tips were your tips, so you're protecting yourself as well, right?
yeah, I didn't even think about it that way. But once again, it was just that know what your role is and why your role is important. And that was the biggest lesson that I learned from that job.
That's a really good one. And I think the other thing, maybe you didn't learn this as a lesson, but something that you just said, that you get good by doing good, right? And you weren't thinking about your tip. You were looking out and doing the right thing for someone, and ultimately it has a benefit for you. But that's a really good lesson. So what was sort of your trajectory work-wise from busboy to now running a publication? I call it empire. Do
Thank
you
you.
call it an empire?
It sure,
Empire
yes.
in waiting, empire to be.
It is, because we're expanding across the world. We're opening office in Mexico and another corporation in Ireland. We're doing a charitable nonprofit in the US to help people that can't afford to be authors, but to teach them and give them the opportunity. So yes, it is. Well, so I started as a busboy, did that for the summer. There was a Jewel food store, it was called, which was nearby my home in Highland, Indiana. And I got a job in general merchandise where most of my friends were working in stocking all the grocery aisles. I stocked like the drug aisles and the magazine aisles and stuff like that. And once again, I took pride in, I was always, I dressed well. I always just took pride in what I knew that I could do. And you're always learning. And see, the biggest thing about that I look back over my life, I've been really a cultural explorer my entire life. I literally looked at all cultures, all people, and I was always fascinated by understanding who people were. Looking back now, I was interested in their whys, why they did what they did. I didn't know that's what I was looking for, but I just did. And also as a kid, you're born brilliant.
Yes.
You are shiny, you are flawless, and the world just kind of, unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, it beats lessons into you sometimes. As a football player and a tennis player and a basketball player, I knew what I should do and what I shouldn't do, but that brilliance is in you. And so luckily I had the spark at a young age to learn. And here's what's weird, by the way, Whitney, I was terrible in high school. High school was so boring to me, so unchallenging, that I hate it, and I never did my work. I barely graduated. But I realized later how much I loved to learn. I started going to community college. And later, after becoming a stockbroker, I'm like, I love learning. And it was just the environment that I was in. So from all of that, go through high school, and like immediately right after high school, I got that job in the first stock brokerage company. And then the second one, I was a stockbroker until 1999. I made a bunch of money, and I decided I'm gonna just retire for a little bit. And I started a website called Selfhelp Zone, which was one of the first self-help websites on the internet. It's when like the internet was like this big, and there was no audio and there's no video, and it was so hard. And programmers were $275 an hour to build websites. So we took the company public and made a bunch of money on that. From there, I bought a television network and started actually interviewing actors. I had a buddy of mine and I were in Orlando, Florida, and we would go to a movie. And in Orlando, no one cared about movies. And so another friend, his father started Full Sail, a video college, And he would bring a camera. We'd do an instant movie review into the camera. And we did a couple of these, put them on YouTube. And this guy named Adam Curry, who was the first DJ on MTV, saw them. He had a website called Mevio, MEVIO.com, which is getting 550 million views a month. And he called me up and he said, Steve, I've seen your movie reviews. Would you be interested in selling me your movie reviews? And I'm going like, we were just doing this for free. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And so he started buying them, and we were making a ton of money. Warner Brothers saw that and said, Steve, would you be interested in interviewing actors? I'm like, sure. Always. By the way, my answer is always yes. I every time I get an opportunity, I just jump in feet first, and I hope that I can float.
I have noticed that about you. So yeah.
And so I just, and by the way, that's a good trait to have, because I don't think anything's impossible. I believe strongly that if you have a hunch or an idea in your head, you have it because God and the universe gave it to you. They said to you, this is something you can do. I'm not going to give you something. God's like, I'm not going to give you something that's going to hurt you or you can't do.
Right.
Those hunches and inspirations that no one listens to, some do, are the things that will guide your life. Sometimes if you just let go.
I would say, well, everything I've said to you or asked you about, or you've said yes to, and you're like, here, run with it.
Yeah.
And here we are. So yeah.
So I got to the point where I said yes to the movie interviews with Warner Brothers, and the next day she called me back and she says, Steve, we need your flight information. I go, why do you need my flight information? She goes, oh, we're going to pay for your ticket. I go, no way. And so this interview was in New York. It was the second to last Harry Potter movie, and I was going to sit down on camera on them, camera on me, and talk to them, each of the actors, about the movie. And so I was like, that's amazing. I said, by the way, is there like a hotel I can get a discount at or something? I go, no, we're going to put you up at the Waldorf. And by the way, you're going to meet Maria Celis from Telemundo. She's going to walk you through the steps when you get there. So I arrive in New York at this thing they call them junkets, and I meet with Maria, and we sit down in the lobby of the Waldorf Astoria, this beautiful old world hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sitting with three other movie interviewers. There's only 20 people in the US that were allowed to do this, and they let me in the door. And they said, somebody said, well, what's our per diem? And I said, what's per diem? and they go, we get $175 a day in per diem. And by the way, if you don't use it, take the robes and slippers and empty your minibar, because Warner Brothers already pays that. There's no they don't get they're not happy if you leave money on the table. So that was the beginning. And from Warner Brothers, it went to Paramount, to Sony and Disney, every other Fox, every other studio. And so for 8 years, and during that period of time, I was living in Orlando, and actually for 2 of them. And every Friday I'd fly from Orlando to New York or LA and interview actors. And it was the most amazing thing in the world. And by the way, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was always this cultural explorer, with every person I talked to, I wanted to find out what made him successful. So I'm interviewing Dwayne Johnson, and I said, Dwayne, let me ask you, 87 television movies, 187 television appearances. Most people at this point would kind of be coasting along, but you're not. Where's that drive coming from? And his answer was just amazing. It's like, well, just wanting more. When I was 17 years old, I had $7 in my pocket. It wasn't always paper. And here I am now. We're talking about this great movie. I'm sitting with you talking about it, and it inspires me. And so when I sat with Dolly Parton and Queen Latifah for a movie called Joyful Noise, I said, I've got 2 daughters. And here I am sitting with not only 2 of the most successful women in Hollywood, but in business in general.
Yeah.
And so what if they could ask you a question, what would you tell them is, I hate to say this, but is the secret or the key to your success? And Queen Latifah was amazing. She said to me, you know what, Steve, the first thing is, you got to stop listening to those well-meaning friends of yours. Those friends that say, you want to be a rapper? You want to be an actor? You want to be a cover girl model? Come on, just hang with me. You're fine. You don't need to do any of that. And by the way, that happens to all of us all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Dolly Parton said to me, listen, and this was so cliche, but so poignant. She said, to your own self, be true. Find who you are and don't constantly change back and forth because of other people's whims. And so from there, I did that for a while. I ended up moving to LA because I got tired of flying every weekend. And then I went to Greg Reed's Secret Knock, and Greg became a friend of mine, where 350 people are privately invited to an event with Frank Shankowitz, and the guy who invented the magnetic strip on your back credit card, the guy who started Chuck E. Cheese and the UPS stores. And not only did they talk on stage and get interviewed, but then they sat with you for 2.5 days, and you got to know these people and vibe with them. And that's when the idea of habits really became something. I'm like, why are these guys different than me? Why are these girls different than me? And I realized that I realized that it was the things they did. So I had the camera because I was helping them film the event. And I said to my camera person, we're going to go ask them all questions. So I went to each person. I said, if you could instantly instill in a child one habit, what would it be and why? Two things amazed me. Number one, they immediately knew what the habit was. I mean, they literally knew it right away. But number two, unbelievable amount of passion about why that habit was important. And that took me on the journey to create the first book, to create a publishing company. We're now in over 40,000 locations available around the world, every library system in the world. If no matter where you are in the world, if you have a library card, you can call your librarian and say, can you get One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success? And they'll say yes, and it'll be available to you.
Wow.
And then here we are talking to you about this. We're working together. You're on the board of directors of my company. This has been a journey of passion, and that's really fueled me. Passion and wonderment, and for people that have a job, you can't change how people treat you or act or what they do, but you can change and affect completely how you react. And that always gives you the opportunity to make more of where you are. And once again, jumping ship, the epidemic is something that is a problem. So before you do that, sit back and go, okay, why did I originally come here? Why did I love this? Do I love my job itself? Now, if you hate what you do, I don't necessarily know that.
Other story.
Yeah. But if you love this job because you love what you do, by the way, if you hate what you do, get retrained, do something else. I don't care how old you are. That's your option, right? Because you have to be in a position that you love what you do, and then loving the company. Pretend like Richard Branson is your CEO, and think to yourself, what would he do to make me love my job, my position, my company so much? And then take those things and envision them and place them into the minds of your people above you. Say, your boss, Bob. Say, Bob, I have an idea. Something that would not only make us more profitable, our division more profitable, but I think would also instill passion in all the employees. And don't be afraid to have those conversations.
That's such good wisdom. And let me ask you this. Have you ever had a job that you didn't like? It sounds like you have found a way in all the things that you've done, taking pride in what you do, that's just sort of a part of who you are.
Yeah. I've never had a job I didn't like, but I want to say something else too. I don't want to be like the employees at the soda jerk stands in the 50s, where they're just kind of like pretending like they love their jobs, whatever it might be. But I just feel, I'm thinking about Marty McFly in the Back to the Future movies, stuff like that. Yeah. And so,
do you ever think outside of movies, or are movies always running in your head?
Well, here's the thing. My father worked so many hours every week that my only memories of my dad growing up were him sleeping on the couch because he worked 12 hours, or every Friday he'd put my brother, my mom, and I in the car, and we'd go to a drive-in movie, and not even knowing what was playing. There was a local drive-in theater, which is around the corner from my house. And so movies became, they just became something for me that connected me to my family.
Okay.
And then when work sucked, and because you can have a bad day, and that's okay. I would as a stockbroker, I would just leave and go, oh, I'm gonna take the day off. And I would go watch a movie, and it would recharge my batteries. And so movies have always been something for me that have recharged my batteries, that let me be in love and let me find things that I love, allow me to cry and let go. It's just always been a part of my life.
That's cool. That's really cool. Awesome. So, talk a little bit about what's going on with One Habit. You've built this, empire. You're expanding, but what are some of the projects that you are currently working on? And if someone wanted to get involved and be an author. Oh, and the other thing is, are you doing anything, or what kinds of things are you doing for people outside of One Habit that they might want to connect with you on?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things. Well, first of all, we have a bunch of books we're working on, and you can go to onehabit.com/contribute and see what books are available. One of the books I love is actually the book you and I are doing together, One Habit to Win at the Work You Love, and we'll have 100 contributors in there that will each offer for people. These are people that love where they work. They found ways. They didn't just love it, by the way. They just didn't all of a sudden love it. They all created their path and their passion to create a point where they now love where they are. And it didn't always start that way.
Yeah.
And so the book will be filled with that. And we're looking for contributors for that, people from that. And the reason I love this book so much is because that you've watched the growth of the company. Most of the books have been very entrepreneurial, about working from home and starting your own business, and One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success. And the first book we did together was One Habit for Success, the Smart Fem series book. Yeah. And I love this book because we've kind of forgot about a group of people, and that's people that don't want to be entrepreneurs. They love having a job. There's so much they love beyond the stability, the creativity within a framework that you don't have. Some people don't want to risk their money, but they want to be creative and they want to take risks, and they want to do it for a company that they can really help to create success in, right? So I love that book. We have several books we're working on that are just amazing. We have one habit for the world's greatest leaders. We have One Habit for the world's greatest Latino leaders, and One Habit for the world's greatest Black leaders. And so we're really drilling down communities as well. We're forming, if you go to wefunder.com/one.habit.press, we're actually, you can own a part of our company. What we're doing is amazing. And so once again, it's wefunder, wefunder.com and /1.habit.press. And you can own part of this company and be on the journey with us, which I think is really exciting. The goal is to go public next year. Yeah, the reason we're raising money, by the way, is in the US, we can work with about 200 authors and do 2 books a month at the very, very most. But so here's what happened. I'm working with my friend in the UK, and we're doing this book on peak performance, One Habit of the world's highest peak performers. And in the US, I'm doing football players and basketball players and baseball players and a lot of athletes, and then CEOs of companies like that. But he's like, Steve, no one cares about those people in the UK. And I was like, oh, you're right. And so I started realizing that geographically around the world, even though we're all one people, we grew up in different cultures.
Right.
They love rugby and they love football, which is we call it soccer. Yeah. And those are their heroes, right? And so I said, well, how can so I can do 200 authors in the US, but if I open another office in Ireland that handles the whole EU, I can then do another 200 books in the UK from the voices and the souls and the hearts of people in the UK about things that are important to them, right, and the habits that resonate with them. And then I brought in Carlos Canejo, who is helping with international expansion. He worked with Zig Ziglar back in late 90s, translating Zig's books into Spanish. And so Carlos and I are doing our first book together, One Habit for the world's greatest Latino leaders, which will be Spanish and English next to each other on every page.
Wow.
And then we're opening offices in another hub in Mexico. And we're just going to have people from Mexico in their voice, in their hearts, in their souls to do One Habit books on what resonates with them. The goal is to have 4 international hubs and this one here, which will allow us to do 10 times the amount of authors every month, 10 times the amount of books, and 1,000 times in sales that we would normally have.
Right.
And what's in is, so that's really exciting. So we have the company expanding across the world using WeFunder, doing a money raise, and people can be a part of that. I mean, you can literally put $100 into the company and be a part of what we're doing, that's why I love this, the way they raise money at WeFunder. It's so beautiful. And then the other thing, lastly, the other thing that we're doing is Carlos helped me realize that I knew there were brilliant voices around the world, okay, that have one thing that they could teach, which would change the world, but they don't have access to the world. And so we created a charitable foundation, which we just filed for. It's still in process right now, a nonprofit. It's a One Habit Entrepreneurial Foundation. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to go to corporations in different countries and in the US that will sponsor authors in one of our books. Because right now, our authors pay $480 or 4 payments of $120 to be in our books. And the reason is because we give them thousands of dollars worth of tools and PR for that money. And so they're really not paying just to be in the book. They're paying for all this PR, all this access to people finding how amazing they are, how beautiful they are, and start being a path to their door. So some people can't afford to do that, but we still have the funding requirements for us to do the books and launch them and advertise them. So we're going to go to corporations like Telemundo. So when we do our first book in Mexico, Telemundo, and we don't have this yet, but as an example, they will sponsor the book, and they will help us bring in 100 amazing entrepreneurial minds that really maybe were never authors before, didn't have access to being an author, and now will have that first step in being a best-selling author, which very well could change their lives forever. So that's where we are.
Absolutely. And I love that opportunity to be a part of the company and opportunity to fund voices that wouldn't be able to make their own financial contribution. And what other publishing house is doing that, right?
Well, really, here's the thing. So
I must say you're lucky if they will, after they sign you on, if they'll actually, market your book for you and not make you do all the work. So
I've got a great example of that, but in a different area, but it's very much that example. A friend of mine, Eric Brenner, he did the movie Crazy Heart. He got an Oscar with Jeff Bridges on that. He's a producer. And we belonged to a cigar club in California where we smoke cigars and eat and pontificate life together, our group. And I'm sitting there I was actually sitting there with Lawrence Fishburne, with LeVar Burton from Reading Rainbow and played Geordie, I think, and Peter Weller from RoboCop. We're 4 of us are sitting on the couch, and Eric walks up, pulls up a chair. He goes, "My movie commitment is Contempt is out," and one of us said, "Really?" And he said, "Exactly." He didn't even. So you make something, you become an author, you become a producer, and you sign to a publishing company or to a film distribution company, and they don't do anything. And that's a commonality. And here's the thing that was interesting. When I did the first book, I thought my customer was the people buying the book, the readers.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden I had this epiphany that, wait a minute. The reason Warner Brothers would send me to sit down with Dwayne Johnson or Bryan Cranston or whoever it might be is because they want the audience to love them. I go, wait a minute. My customer, my client is the author. So if I can start creating tools, and I had none at the beginning, if I can start creating tools to help them, for more people to find them, for them to tell their story, if I can do that, people will buy the books. And so that's the journey I started going on. And so when an author comes in, we help them, first of all, to make sure they have a properly formatted, beautiful author page at Amazon. But we also create this author resource page because we got hundreds of thousands of people that come to onehabit.com every month. So we create this author resource page with their face and their elevator pitch and their bio and all their important links, but it's visually beautiful. Yeah. And it takes advantage of all our traffic and people find them. We do these amazing, you and I do an 8-hour Facebook Live Jerry Lewis telethon launch of our books every time a new book is launched. And each author comes on for 4 or 5 minutes and they talk about, what do they talk about? Do they talk about the book?
Themselves.
Yeah.
They talk about themselves,
Yeah.
not about the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gives
So
giving people a chance to love them, right? And so they would want to read what they have to say.
I got to ask you a question, by the way, Whitney.
Sure.
I love the book that you came to me with and said we should do this. What was, I mean, because we were doing all these entrepreneurs, what was your why? What was the reason you thought a book called One Habit to Win at the Work You Love? Why did that come to your mind and to your heart? Why was that something you wanted to do?
Because I had experiences where I wasn't loving my work, and understanding that there were shifts that I had to make in my mindset, in my behaviors, that I don't want other people to go through that. It's like, if you can understand that there is a way for you to be proactive in your work life. Your work is your business, right? So whether you have a business or you're an employee, your work is your business, and it is your responsibility to make it everything that you want it to be. And my particular habit is to have a vision for what it is you want it to be. And once you can do that, once you can have a vision, then the how to make that happen will come to you. But some people are going to suffer through it because they're the kinds of people that say, I have to, learn my lessons my own way. But if you can learn lessons from other people, you
Why would
can
you not?
spend that energy on some other lessons that people haven't learned yet, right? There are always going to be opportunities to learn lessons. So learn from the ones that have already been learned. Success leaves clues. And then learn something new and chart a course or a path for someone else to learn something.
I just, that's a great why. That's a great why. And when you came to me with this idea, it was so far outside what we were doing. I knew that it was a genius idea, because I realized that there was a group of people we weren't serving.
Yeah.
As an example, I was a waiter during all this time between the stockbroker thing and the leaving Jewel Full Store. I was a waiter right before I became a stockbroker after high school. And I treated my 3 tables as my business. And we're other waiters. And by the way, there are millions of waiters and waitresses. They probably call themselves servers now, I think, and people in the restaurant industry. And so I did 2 things. Number one, I treated this as a business. And as a business, you don't take all your money and spend it that night. You basically think about how I'm going to reinvest it. So I would get I get a manicure, make sure I was properly groomed. My shirts were dry clean. No other waiters were doing that at the time when I was 17 years old. And so I just really saw that as my business, and I treated those 3 tables that they were perfect in my area. And by the way, the other tables around me, it's kind of like being in a community where you have your business and there's some crappy businesses around you. I would help bust tables and stuff to make sure my area around my business was beautiful too. And I made a ton of money as a waiter. And by the way, I also saved a ton of money.
Right.
I was making $250 a day as a kid, that age, and all that money went to savings, and it went back in the stock market actually, and that money grew from there, obviously.
I waited tables as well, and the thing is, I made a habit of helping the others around me. Right? Some people never ran meals for other people, never helped clean up any of that, and I was really good. I can't say that I enjoyed waiting tables. I don't think that I did, but I enjoyed the camaraderie of the people that I worked with. We, spent time together after work every day. We spent a lot of time at the restaurant next door to the restaurant I worked in, drinking after work, but getting to know each other and building relationship. And so again, it's one of those things where even if you don't enjoy the exact work that you're doing, there is something that you can find to enjoy, to love, to appreciate, to be grateful for in what you're doing. and then simultaneously make plans, efforts, take actions that will move you where you want to go. Figure out where you want to go and chart a path to get there. So that's my soapbox on this. As we wrap this up, Steve, if you could leave the audience with sort of this is Steve's take on work and loving work. A lesson that you've learned, or just some great piece of advice you'd like to leave the audience with, what would it be?
I would say that each day when you go home at night, take just a moment and think about what happened today at work. Think about, listen, here's the thing. If you do your job in a way that no one else is willing to do it, in a way that is more, forget about all the processes and stuff. No, you use that as a foundation, the processes that you're taught at work. But don't let that be a wall around you. Use that as a thing that lifts you up, but always think outside the box. And I would say on a quarterly basis, at the minimum, go to your upper management and say, listen, I had an idea that might serve to plus the company. Can I share it with you? And write it down and send it through an email so you have a record of it. And just go outside the box of what. Don't look at your job as, here's my job description and that's not part of my job. Never ever do that, because you'll find passion by just taking steps outside the box that will inspire you. It will be rewarding to you. Your desire and your passion will just grow. So I think that's it.
That's a good one. And I'll leave on this, tying into that. In my last job, for working for someone else, in the midst of not enjoying what I was doing, was lobbying, wasn't enjoying that anymore, I did exactly what you just said. I actually had a vision for where I was going to go. And I went to my boss and said, I want to create this. And what it was doesn't matter. You can come up with whatever it is. But I said, I want to create this. I want to do this. And my reason for wanting to do it was, and there were multiple parts to it, but one of it was going to be what I was going to be doing. And I wanted to have the experience, on someone else's time and someone else's dime.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I created it there, and then so now I get to say that I've done that, right? I've created this program, actually created two, and it was something that really helped to infuse me with enthusiasm about going to work every day when there were other parts of what I was doing that did not excite me. And it changed the whole way I saw what I was doing for probably the last 3 years that I was there. And so it was a painful experience that I turned around, and you've talked about this a lot. And so you have the power to turn it around. And I just want to leave the audience with that. You have the power to turn it around. You don't have to flee. Figure out what it is you want, get a vision for what it is you want, and then chart a path to get there inside your organization, outside your organization, in a new industry, whatever it is. You can do it. And if you need some habits to help you do that, Steve's got a whole library of books that will help you do that. And if you are an author, a potential author, aspiring author, and you already love the work you're doing and have something you'd like to share, a habit you'd like to share, the link is in the post. It is what again, Steve?
So onehabit.com /contribute. But if you just go to onehabit.com, there's a contribute button. Just click on there. It talks about what books are coming out right next that you can be a part of if they resonate with you. And what being an author will do for you and what we will do for you.
Absolutely.
And it tells our whole story right there.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. You're a fun interview and just a really great guy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Whitney. This was wonderful. I know every time that we chat, every time we're going to do an interview, I know it's going to be amazing because you are incredible at doing this. And you are really doing a lot to change the world. And I have so much appreciation in you because of that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day. And until next time, go out and do some work that you love. Take care.